Italy, the land of romance, home of pasta, Roman architecture, and many other things that cultured throughout history. The land of Italy, which stretches from the Alps to the Mediterranean Sea. Italy wasn't always as it was today. It actually was at first, as many of you know, was a Roman Empire up until 476 AD. And it changed hands between warlords, kings, pretenders, and eventually the Holy Roman Empire. But before 1815, the area that we know now as Italy was heavily divided like slices of pizza in a box. Politics, as we all know and not love, kept these states apart. Naples wanted to be its own solitary man, as Johnny Cash would say. So did Sicily. And you had Rome, of course, which seated the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope. And this area was known as the Papal States. The changing of the borders over time was somewhat orchestrated by the Holy Roman Empire to the north. Well, at least its influence was completely flushed out by the 19th century, thanks in part or in full to the French Revolution and Napoleon. By the late 1700s, Napoleon, who grew up in Corsica to Italian nobility from Tuscany, wanted to return France to greatness, as well as inflate his ego a little bit. Well, more than a little bit anyway. Okay. He wanted to inflate his ego so big that it eventually crushed him when the pressure of war got to him. So he waged a massive campaign of conquest, and in doing so, changed the entire political map of Europe. His ambition burned through Europe, turning the shattered Holy Roman Empire into a loose confederation, and installing puppets to rule in the Italian peninsula. But the changing political climate was inevitable, and the Italian Risorgimento was also inevitable. Let me explain. The Habsburgs, who had rulers all across Europe, these ruling elite married and made love to each other so often and over a so long period of a few hundred years that it ultimately led to their downfall. Think of over a dozen Cersei and Jaime Lannisters all over Europe. Nice Game of Thrones reference. And their heirs to the throne were a lot like Joffrey. Yeah, imagine that. It was not a fun time to be alive then, let me assure you. Especially if you were not nobility anyway. The Habsburgs' rule in Italy came to an end with the campaigns of the French Revolutionaries in 1792 to 1797, when a series of client republics were set up, and in 1806, the Holy Roman Empire was dissolved by the last emperor, Francis II. After its defeat by Napoleon at the Battle of Austerlitz, the last hope the Habsburg had in restoring their power lied in the European coalition, spearheaded by the Kingdom of Great Britain, whose House of Hanover was good friends with the Habsburgs. Moreover, the result of the Napoleonic Wars had done too much damage to restore the political map of its pre-18th century environment. The idea left behind by the supporters of Napoleon, such as Francesco Melzi di Elro, Duke of Lodi, Count of Magenta, who served as vice president of the Italian Republic from 1802 to 1805, still burned in the hearts of Italians everywhere, and many wanted a state with one flag for all Italians. A sense of patriotic spirit refused to die, no matter how hard the Habsburgs tried. Even Pope Pius IX of the Holy Roman Catholic Church tried to quell the thoughts of what is now known as classic liberalism and Italian nationalism that yearned in the hearts and minds of all who wanted a united Italy. The tide was turning, and these power brokers could not stop it. But from 1815 to 1918, they did try, and the cost of unification was great, paid in blood, sweat, and tears. The greatest obstacle to Italian unification was ultimately, well, you guessed it, the Habsburg dynasty. Italian exiles dreamed of unification. 3 ideals of unification appeared. Vincenzo Goldberti, a Piedmontese priest, had suggested a confederation of Italian states under the leadership of the Pope. In his 1842 book of the moral civil primacy of the Italians, Pope Pius IX at first appeared to be interested, but as mentioned before, he turned reactionary and led the battle against classic liberalism and Italian nationalism. Giuseppe Mazzini and Carlo Catanino wanted the unification of Italy under a federal republic, which proved too extreme for most Italian nationalists. The middle position was proposed by Cesare Balbo from 1789 to 1853 as a confederation of separate Italian states led by the Piedmont. Many wars between 1815 and 1918 would be fought to shape the country of Italy we know today. The revolutions of 1820 and 1830 failed, however, to bring about a unified state. Despite the loss, these revolutions only fueled the desire for democracy in Italy. The Italian States Revolution of 1848 took place around the same time as the German revolutions of 1848 and 1849. All of them had failed to achieve their goals, and the constant struggles against tyranny of the Austrian and Prussian empires led people from the German Empire and also the Italian peninsula to immigrate to the United States. A large influx of Germans, Italians, as well as Irish immigrants who suffered under the potato famine entered New York Harbor as well as Boston Harbor in the United States, looking for a free country to make an honest living and escape the troubles of Europe. Most of the Italians who immigrated to the United States, many of whom were veterans of the Italian Wars of Unification, joined the Union Army, and many of those recruits were recruited from New York City. These immigrants expressed interest in the Union Army, and they impressed the commanders so much that they reached positions of authority in the Army. Brigadier General Edward Ferrero was the original commander of the 51st New York Regiment. He commanded both brigades and divisions in the eastern and western theaters of war. Also, a noteworthy Italian, Colonel Enrico Fordella, of the same and later 85th New York Regiment, was made a brigadier general when the war ended. In 1861, the dream of Risorgimento was realized, and the Kingdom of Sardinia and other states in the Italian peninsula got together for the first time as a unified state, becoming the Kingdom of Italy with King Victor Emmanuel II at the helm. Victor, however, did not have time to relish his pride long enough, because, as you guessed it, that God-forsaken neighbor to the northeast, Austria, came knocking at the door, wanting to end the party that King Victor had started. The war was short, but violent, and the Italians managed to stake a claim to Venetia at the end of the Third Italian War of Independence. Well, they did say the third time was the charm, right? Italy had its finest generals. One of them was the great Giuseppe Garibaldi. He would be known as Italy's greatest commander, and his exploits in Italy as well as South America was well renowned. He was even enticed by the United States to lead them against the Confederate States of America, to which he politely declined due to one of the conditions he asked for was yet to be met: the abolishment of slavery. Had Abraham Lincoln did his Emancipation Proclamation just 1 year earlier, Giuseppe Garibaldi would have considered leading the United States Union Army against Robert E. Lee. Imagine that. What a sight that would have been. What a story that would have been. And eventually I might do an alternate history story on it sometime in the not too distant future. Anywho, in July of 1870, the Franco-Prussian War was heating up. In August, Napoleon III recalled his garrison from Rome. The French not only needed troops to defend their homeland, but there was also real concern in Paris that Italy might use the French presence in Rome as a pretext to go to war with France. In the earlier Austro-Prussian War, Italy had aligned with Prussia, and the Italian public opinion favored the Prussian side at the start of the war. The removal of the French garrison eased tensions between Italy and France, and for a time, Italy remained neutral in the Franco-Prussian War. With the French garrison gone, widespread public demonstrations demanded that the Italian government take Rome. But Rome, however, remained under French protection on paper. Therefore, an attack would still have to be regarded as an act of war against the French Empire. Furthermore, although Prussia was at war with France, it had gone to war in an uneasy alliance with the Catholic southern German states, so that it had fought against and alongside Italy for just 4 years prior. Although Prussian Prime Minister Otto von Bismarck was no friend of the papacy, not at all. They hated each other. Otto von Bismarck wanted nothing but disdain for the papacy. He knew any war that put Prussia and the Holy See in opposing alliances would almost certainly have been an upset, the delicate pan-German coalition, and with it, his own carefully laid out plans for national unification, both Prussia and Italy. Any missteps that caused the breakup of the pan-German coalition brought it with it the risk of Austro-Hungarian intervention in a wider European conflict. Basically, it would have been World War I, but almost 30 or 40 years earlier. The French emperor was disposed and forced into exile following the end of the Franco-Prussian War. The most experienced and well-disciplined French units were captured by the Germans, who quickly followed up their success at Sedan by marching on to Paris. Faced with pressuring need to defend its capital with its remaining forces, the new French government was clearly not in a position to retaliate against Italy. In any event, the new government was far less sympathetic to the Holy See and did not possess the political will or the resources to protect the Pope's position. At first, King Victor Emmanuel II offered a proposal to the Pope in Rome for a peaceful handover of Rome to the Italians. King Victor Emmanuel II San Martino to Pius IX with a personal letter offering a face-saving proposal that would have allowed the peaceful entry of the Italian army into Rome, under the guise of protecting the Pope. Along with the letter, the Count carried a document that Lanza had prepared, sending out 10 articles that would serve as the basis for an agreement between Italy and the Holy See. Obviously, Pope Pius IX, as stubborn as he was, could not bring himself to relinquish Rome so easily, and knowing Pope Pius, he had a nasty temper, which sent in an unbridled rage. His violent outbursts could easily terrify his own subjects. Pius IX took the king's letter and threw it on the table as he exclaimed, "Fine! Loyalty! You are all set of vipers of white sepulchres and wanting in faith." He was perhaps alluding to other letters received from the king. After growing calmer, he exclaimed, "I am no prophet, nor a son of a prophet, but I tell you, you will never enter Rome." San Martino was so understandably flabbergasted that he stormed out of Rome the next day. The Pope's response was scathing, to say the least, and after the papal state was doomed, King Victor didn't take no for an answer. Obviously, his I'll show you all moment took over and raised a massive force to capture Rome. The Kingdom of Italy seized the opportunity, poured troops into Rome like thick tomato sauce pouring on a plate of spaghetti. The capture of Rome was led by none other than General Raphael Cordona. He led a persistent campaign into the city, in which the pitched battle took place between over 50,000 Italians and only 1,000 papal guards, hired mercenaries, and other papal defenders, including the Swiss Guard. The Pope was surrounded. His guards were outmatched and outnumbered 5-1. The Pope's only hope of escape was to lie about his identity, to fool the Italians, and flee in a disguise. He was successful in his escape and fled. The papacy was now a government in exile, and Rome was now in Italy's hands. The most important piece of the puzzle was in place, but there was still one more puzzle piece to get, one last piece of land to claim. While it can be said the Italian unification was never fully completed in the 19th century, many Italians remained outside the borders of the Kingdom of Italy, and this situation created the Italian Irredentism. This was known in Italy as the Italia Irredente, aka the Unredeemed Italy. It was the Italian nationalist opinion movement that emerged after the Italian unification, and it advocated Irredentism among the Italian people as well as other nationalities who were willing to become Italian, and as a movement, it became later known as an Italian Irredentism. When the outbreak of the Great War took place in 1914, Italy was deciding on what to do next. Since Great Britain offered terms to Italy in exchange for Italian support of the war effort, Great Britain and the Allies would accept Italian claims to the areas near the Adriatic Sea as well as the Northern Alps, such as Tyrol, Trieste, Tyrol. And finally, in 1919, after World War I had ended, the puzzle was complete. Italy was whole. Well, thank you for watching and thank you for subscribing. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel so you can be alerted to more documentaries that I may post on this channel. And as always, thanks for watching.